Today we will see how we can split PDFs dynamically, but we will also learn to work with files and folders and a little bit of regex. So download the files below, open up your UiPath and do the operations with me. So I have a folder here. It's called split PDF and it has an input folder in it. In the input folder, there's a given amount of PDFs. The PDF look like this. We will have a invoices ABC. Here we have invoices on each page. We can see that it's only expanding one page like this. But then we have another invoice KLM PDF. Here we have an invoice on page 1. We have another invoice on page 2. But we can see that this invoice will span over 2 pages now. And then an invoice 3 comes in. We can see that it spans over 2 pages because it got the same number, but also because it says page 1 and page 2. And finally, we got the most advanced one. We have an invoice where we have invoice 1 on page 1, then we have invoice 2, and invoice 2 is spanning 5 pages, like this. So we will create a solution for each one of the steps, and we will use the previous steps to create this solution here. So let's get on. We go to UiPath. The first thing that you need to do is to press Manage Packages up here. We'll need something for our PDF activities. So press All Packages, go up here and search for PDF. Choose the UiPath PDF Activities, click Install and click Save. The first task is to create a main sequence. So drag in a sequence here. We could call this main. Then we need to read through all the PDFs files in our folder. We saw that the split PDF was our main directory, and then we have an input folder in it. So how do we do that? First, we'll find where our input folder is stored. Mine is on my desktop. Then we shift right click, copy as path. Back to UiPath. Click Variables, create a variable. I'll call this strProjectPath, and then in default, I'll put in the value that I just created here. Then I close down the variables manager, and now I'm ready to iterate through each run of these PDFs file names. So I find a for each, drag it in. Here I will change item to file. It does nothing other than describing it a little better. You can still keep the item if you want that. And then I want to get all the file names. I'll use Directory here, .GetFiles, like this, then parentheses, and then I want to specify where UiPath should search. I'll use my newly created variable called strProjectPath, like this, and then I want it to look in the input directory. So I say plus, quotation marks, /, input, like this. I could then put in comma afterwards, and then I need a search pattern. In quotation marks like this, I'll say asterisk. That means that it will look for everything. Then I say .pdf. Now it will only look through PDF files in this input folder in the project path. So that's what we're doing here. Remember to change the type argument to a string here. And then just let me show you what we're actually doing. So drag in a right line, simply just put in file. So now I'll write each one of the file names out into the output console. So click Run File. Like this. If we go down to output, then we can see that we have each one of our PDFs nicely written out, and now we can work with it. So close down the output console and let us talk about what we're doing here. The first thing that we want is to get the total page count of each of these PDF files. And that is easy because we can just get a get PDF page count here, drag it in underneath. So what file name can we provide? We will just provide the file name that we got from up here and that you saw written out before. So I just put in file here, and now we can delete this right line. That was only for example purposes, so delete that. Mark the get PDF page count. So this one will get the PDF count and output it to an integer. So over in output page count, so Control K, and then I say int total page count. So now we will get an integer out, and I can show you how that looks. So I'll choose a right line again, and I'll just put in int total page count to string, like this. Now we can run the flow again. So right now we are just getting the total page count of each one of the PDFs. If we go down to output, we can see 4, 4, and 7. That's fine. We will now delete the right line. What do I want to do? Well, now I got the total page count. Then I can start from 1 and iterate up all the way from 1 to the total page count and extract the PDF pages one by one. Because now we will only extract them one by one. I'll create a variable down here in variables. I'll call that intCurrentPage. Remember to change the variable type to an integer like this. And I'll give the start value of 1 to it because we will start on page 1 like this. Then I need a while loop. So search for a while here and drag it in. Remember to put it in your for each. A while loop is just a loop that runs over and over until this condition is not met anymore. So what condition do I want to look at? Well, I want to compare my current page to the total page count. So what I do here is that I say int current page less than or equal to the total page count. Then it will start by 1 when we go into the while loop, and then we need to add 1 to it. So we make sure that it will add 1 to this, and then finally reach the total page count and do 1 more and then stop. So here I'll have an assign, find it over here and drag it in. To add something to an integer, we'll just type in the integer that we want to add something to, and then we'll type in the integer again, because now we're just saying equal to equal, but then we need a +1, it will add 1 to it. So far, so good. Now we just need to extract the PDF one by one, as we do here. So find a extract PDF range, like this. Drag it in. What file name do we want to extract? That is still the file from up here. So in the input here, put in file. Then we need to specify a range over here, and that is just a current page. This input will take on strings only, so we need to convert our integer to strings. So what we do is just that we say int current page to string. We could also have written out a really long sequence where we first extracted page 1, then page 2, page 3, but then we would have to have like 7 of these flows. Or if we have 100 pages, we would have to have 100 activities. So that's why we make a while loop. Then we just need a output file name. And let us go to the folder again. Here we have our folder. We have an input folder, so why not create an output folder? Right click, new folder. I'll call this output. And here I want to extract to. Now I did it manually. If you want to do it automatically, then watch in a few minutes. I'll show you how we can do that. So with that created, we go down here to the output. I have my variable for the project path, that is strProjectPath. Then I just specify that I want to put it in the output, like this, and this. Then we should give it a file name, because if we don't, each one of these PDF extraction will get the file name and it will get overwritten. So we don't want that. What file name do we want to give him? Well, if we go to output, it could be nice if we remember before we had the invoices ABC, invoices KLM, and XYZ. We want those file names from here into the file names into the output folder. So what I do here is that I say path, then dot, get file name without extension, like this, file. What this does, it just take the whole path and just give us the name of the file without all these extensions. So that's fine. But then again, we will have 4 identical names from for example, the first PDF and 7 from the last ones. We don't want that. So let's add a unique name to it. So I'll say plus, then underscore, then I'll say plus, and the unique name, that could be the QNPage count. So if I say int QNPage to string like this, we will add a unique ID to it. Then I'll just need that I want it as a PDF. So plus quotation marks PDF like this. Now we can run it. So if I just click up here and run the file like this, I'll go into my output folder, and we can see that we have written out smoothly and nice each one of the PDF pages. However, while it's fine here in the ABC, it's not really fine here in the KLM and the XYZ. Because remember, here in the KLM, we had an invoice that spans over page 2 and page 3. So these ones has to be 1. And here we have a PDF that spans over page 2 to page 6, I think it was. But let's create the solution for that. But first, I told you that I wanted to create this output folder automatically, so we don't have to create it if it's already there. So let us delete this. Then we go back to UiPath, and up in the beginning, make sure that we are clear of the for each, so right here in the beginning. Then I want to ask, does this output folder exist? Yes or no? So I'll choose a path exists here. I'll drag that in, and here I'll say, does this folder exist? Now I just need to specify a folder, and that is exactly the one I took. Let me go up here. Let me expand this. It is exactly this. So I can just copy it out. I can put it in here. So now we ask, does this folder exist? And this one will come out in the Boolean that can hold a true or false value. So let's create that. Control K, then I'll say boo, output, and then press enter. So now we have a true false value whether that folder exists or not. Then we just need to ask in an if. So I'll take an if here, drag it in. The if will ask, bool output, is that true or false? If it's true, then it's already there. We don't need to create it. But if it's not true, then we'll end over here and we'll create it. So find a create folder like this and drag it in. That is just this folder from up here, like this. So now, even though we don't have an output, we created an automation that will create it. So let's start the workflow and see it in action, that it actually works. Like this, and we see that we created our output folder here with the files in. So far, so good. Now, the next problem is that in these KLMs, we had that the second page, that was an invoice 2 that spans over 2 pages. So let's create the solution, or rather, we will expand this solution so it will work whether the invoice got 1 or 2 pages. What we need to do is inside our while loop, we will read the text out. So I'll find a read PDF text like this, drag it in. What PDF text will we read? Yes, you guessed it, right? We will just read the current file. So I'll say file, and this one will read this PDF file into a string that we can work with. So if we go over here, I'll press Control K, and then I'll say str invoice extract. Then we just remember to read only the current page. So up here in range, we will still only read the current page. So I'll say int current page to string like this. So this one will just read it. And then we need to find an identifier to decide whether there's a page 2 or not. Because if the current page is a page 2, then we know that this page and the previous page is tied together. So let's do a search on the current page for a page 2. And here we will use some very simple regex. If you don't know what regex is, check the video up here in the right corner. That will teach you everything. Then find a matches. Drag in the matches below here. We'll need to provide it with an input string. That is just a string from up here. So I'll say str invoice extract. Then the pattern we want to search for, that was page 2, like this. And then if this page 2 exists, then we will have a list with the results. So I go down here, press Ctrl K, I say enumerable of matches. So if this enumerable matches is not null, then we know that we have a page 2, and then we know that it is a 2-page invoice. So we will find an if again, here, drag it in below the matches. Then I'll ask, is my list of matches, so that is intMatchCount, greater than 0? If that is true, then we know that we are on a page 2 and this page and the previous page are tied together. Otherwise, we are just in this branch and it will work completely as before. So what I want to do here is that I want to take this, copy it up here. I will copy this one as well and put it over here. But we need to do a little bit of gymnastics to make this works. Because what do we want to extract? Now I want to extract 2 pages, because remember, we know that we are on a second page. We want to extract the previous page to our current page. So up here in range, click the 3 dots. We want to extract the intCurrentPage, so make a parentheses. Then over here, we put a -1 and then parentheses. Then remember the dot like this. So and then we have a plus, because now we wanted this, and then we have another plus, and then we'll say the current page. Then this, a plus, and then we want to go to the current page. So this is a 2-pager, like this. And we can also talk a little bit about the name here. So I go up here in the output file name, and instead of having the name to be the current page, we want it to be the name where the invoice starts. So again, let us have parentheses, -1 and the parentheses end. So now the previous one will get overridden by the current one. And by the way, we can delete this. So this is a sufficient solution if our PDFs only have 1 or 2 pages. Let's try that in action, and let me just delete everything that's in here so we can see that it works. Run the file. Like this. We go back. And now we can see here we got 1, 2, 3, 4 with the ABC. And then we have 1, 2, 4. Well, that looks good. So let's take the second invoice, that is this one, and look if we have 2 pages. We indeed have. So far so good. But we still need to fix this last solution where we don't know the page rank. So these invoices can have everything between 1 and unlimited pages. This one got 5, but we don't know. So let me minimize this and go back to UiPath. Like here. So now we know that we have a page 2, then we just need to ask, is there a page 3? If there's a page 3, then we need to ask if there's a page 4, and so forth. Let's create that. First, we will need another counter to know where we are in where we ask, is this page 3, page 4, and so forth. So if we go down to variables, then we'll create it. Create an integer. I'll call that intMatchCounter. Like this, that will be an integer, and we will give it the value 3 because we know that we are on page 3. So let me close that again. Then we will drag this sign in here. I'll show you why when we are done with this branch over here. So we are over here, and we need to create a while loop because we want to ask all the time whether there exists 1 page ahead. So if we go to Activities and then search for a while loop again, and again the while loop will simply just run as long as the condition is met. So we do like this, and what we do here is that we'll ask if this enumerable of matches is greater than 0, then we know that we have a second page. We already know that, but now we need to ask whether a third page exists. Now we need to read our next PDF page. So find a read PDF text like this and drag it in. The file name, that is just file. And now we need to change it to a bit. We need to reach next page of where we are. So if we go over here, we will just do like this. Instead of the range all, we will have that. We know we are on the intCurrentPage. That can be a random number between 1 and the total page count. So we know we are here. Then we'll say intMatchCounter like this. Then -2, because we know that this one was 3. So if we need to go 1 page ahead, we will need to do this. Then we just need a toString like this. Okay. So now we extracted the next page. Then let's ask if there is a page 3 exist. So if we go up here again, then we'll find a matches and drag it in. So again, we will read this PDF into an output. We forgot that up here, so I'll just put in the str invoice extract again, like this. So now we can provide this matches with the str invoice extract. We will go in the output and still store it in the IEnumerable of matches, like here. Now we just need to talk about the pattern. So the pattern, well, we need to know that whether we are on page, then a space, and then plus, and then we can use our intMatchCounter. So we know that it's 3, so if we just say intMatchCounter like this, then toString like this. So this one will look for number 3, and then we will need to have an assign, like in our while loop we created before, we will have an assign in here as well. So find an assign that will add 1 to the intMatchCounter. I know this is a little bit complicated, but then watch the video once more, you will easily get it. So then intMatchCounter +1 like this. So now we add 1 to it, and then this while loop will run again. We will read the next page. We will see if that is a page 4, and then we will add 1 to it. So this one will run until it not runs anymore. Then we know that we have no more pages to that invoice, and we can do the extract down here. Then we just need to adjust the range here. So I'll go up to range here. We'll still read from the previous page, current page, but we will have to adjust this. So we will still use the intCurrentPage, put a parentheses around it. Then our match counter, so we will say plus intMatchCounter. That one will tell where we are at the page count. And then we will have to subtract 4. Then we will say parentheses end, and then toString, like this. This one will always be true because this one was 3 initially. So then we'll click OK, and now we just need to have an assign like this over here that will adjust the current page. So I'll copy the assign over here, and then here where we need to add to our current page counter, we go over here to the value. Instead of adding 1 to it, we will add intMatchCounter because that's where we are in the page count, and then we'll subtract 3 as that was the number we gave it initially. We can run it. Verify that we have our output folder here, and we can even, if we want to run completely, delete the output folder, run it again, like this, to verify that we also create the output folder with the right files in, like this. So go to the output. Here we see we have 1, 2, 3, 4 for the ABC, that's fine. Then the KLM 1, 2, 4, that was also fine. But also check this. I'll open the second invoice here. Here we have page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5 extracted. That was what we wanted. If you like this advanced use case, check the playlist with the advanced use cases to the left, or check the complete reframework tutorial to the right. Have a great day. Bye bye.